Welcome, I'm Charlotte Britton from Optima Exposure, and today we're here at the Awakening in Cleckheaton in the Submarine Cinema. In this series of interviews with business leaders across Yorkshire, I'm talking to a range of businesses who are successfully using social media in their businesses. Here today we're talking to Alison Boxall-Gordon from Buzz Marketing about her business and what she's doing with social media. So great to have you here today, Alison, and thanks very much for your time. So do you want to tell us a bit more about IzziWizziKids and how you set up the business and how you started using social media?
I set up IzziWizziKids back in 2006 as an e-commerce venture where I was using search engine optimization and traditional forms of marketing online to attract customers to my website, which was using email. And then about 2007, with the emergence of the early days of social media, I started to understand more about blogging and start to explore more ideas around blogging. And then as into 2008 went into Twitter, a bit more into Facebook, starting to explore that a little bit more to see what that meant for customers and how we could reach out. But I was very uncertain about the environments really at that stage. There wasn't a lot of information about it at that stage.
So how have you taken social media and taken it as a core part of your business?
Well, basically, what I did from that was started to explore it a little bit more and get using it. And I think that was the key, really, not to be scared of it and just to start to use it and speak to customers. And started to understand, actually, there's a real opportunity here through the tools that are emerging through social media to change the direction of the business through marketing. And as the years have sort of evolved from the early days, IzziWizziKids no longer is an e-commerce business, but is more geared towards marketing and social media marketing specifically.
And how did you identify which platforms were right for your business? Because obviously, perhaps LinkedIn isn't perhaps appropriate what you're doing. So how did you trial which platform works best?
I tried different things with what worked, and I think it's looking at where the market was hanging out. The thing for IzziWizziKids was it was all about parents, and the key is where do parents hang out when the kids have gone to bed? They come online and they socialise. So whereabouts are parents socialising? Well, they're using Facebook predominantly, but also Twitter has a big part to play, particularly with parent bloggers. So started to explore that a little bit further as well. Also looked a little bit more into Google+, but haven't delved into there yet because that hasn't been used quite as extensively as the other two.
So thinking a little bit more about Playfest, which is I know something that you run on Twitter and on Facebook, how have you used that to engage parents with brands and actually get that feedback?
The social media engagement developed into Playfest as an idea where, as an event, in the real world, events, you get a lot more done when you get a collective group of people together talking about particular topics of conversation. You get a lot more out of it, basically. So it was this idea translated into a social media environment, so to promote an online event, to draw lots of attention and talk about specific topics there. So what I then did was develop that into understanding more about what the community itself that was evolving through these events wanted to talk about, and then defined events around what they wanted to discuss. It became less about IzziWizziKids and what IzziWizziKids was trying to present, and more about what the community itself wanted to get out of it.
That's really great to hear. So it's more about the parents talking about the brands and feedback on the brands, and actually testing out some of the toys and actually giving that feedback online.
Yeah, partly that. There's different elements of it. The community wants a more rounded view of it. So part of what they want to do is engage with brands. The other thing they want to do is talk about play and inspire play ideas with their kids. They want to be more influential with brands. They want to be more influential with charities, with content. I think there's a whole mixed bag of things that they want to do. But part of what they want to do is to engage with brands. Exploring that a bit further, the brands want to engage with the parents. So what the IzziWizziKids Playfest does, it provides a platform with an engaged audience. We're not there to talk about brands and toys all the time, but part of what we do is that, and that creates a really enthusiastic, open community of people ready to listen. So I think the key there is not to be driven purely around product. It's about the needs and wants of the receiving end of your community.
Okay. So I suppose thinking a little bit more about the brands, do you think some of the big toy brands are ready for feedback from their customers, from their target market, or are there more sort of brands which are a bit more forward thinking, a bit more progressive on them?
I think brands are ready to some extent. I think it varies from brand to brand, in fairness. Some are there with social media, some are just developing into it. Some are sort of left behind on that. But I think there's a key thing that brands are listening, because they're very keen to get their products reviewed through blogs and things like that. So a lot of what we do is encourage the community to get confident with doing video reviews, because it adds weight to the product, and it also shows how that's played with in context, in the family context.
Do you think those brands which are a little bit more engaged with their audience and their customers and take on board and the feedback, do you think they're going to build a better brand loyalty and a better following?
Absolutely. I mean, it speaks volumes. When we have a playfest, we have a playfest every week, we get the brands in, because it's an engaged community, and the whole ethos of the community is everybody that's involved in Playfest wants to listen to you, that the brands come in and it just shouts volumes about what the brand is about, that they're ready to listen and take on board what mums, dads have to say about the product.
Do you think this is an idea, a concept which could evolve into other industries and other brands, or do you think it's something really, people are really passionate about, parenthood and children?
I think people are very passionate about parenthood and children, but I think people are very passionate about lots of different things as well, and they hang out in lots of different places.
Yeah.
So I think these platforms provide perfect opportunities to listen to your customers, and an area that we focus specifically on is business to consumer relationships, and using social media to capture the insights from customers in what they think about the brand's products, and using those insights and translating them into action.
Okay, so thinking a little bit more about measuring success. So when you're talking to these brands, or when you're having a playfest, how do you measure success in terms of, is it visitors to websites, is it the number of likes on your Facebook posts? How do you measure success?
This is a key thing really for brands, is the volume itself doesn't necessarily translate into sales. It's how you use that to translate that into sales. So we've listened to the community and listened to brands to understand a bit more about what they need. Brands are spending money on research and development, for example. Social media provides an ideal opportunity to capture insights from your market, from your customers, and translate that into some kind of meaningful action at the end, at the point of sale, to help increase conversion. So it's all about that point of sale, that retail interaction, the marketing communications, and how you can use social media to capture those insights from your customers.
So thinking about other businesses who are thinking about starting to use social media, I know there's a lot of chatter around, does it actually drive return on investment? Do you think it's more important to start with an end goal and work towards that, or actually test out the market and see where, how you can engage with your audience and see where it takes you?
I think for me, it's more important to be qualitative about social media, not worry about the numbers. Yes, that's great if it's the right type of people, but I think that the key thing for me is to recognise that at the end of that name, or that username, is an individual who has needs, who is desperate to share those needs and talk to you and communicate and explain what they want from you as a customer. And if you can see each individual that follows you in that way, then you can really listen and understand and start to engage at a much deeper level than just throwing content out at a large volume of people.
So thinking forward, obviously it's a very fast moving market, there's always new platforms coming out, and Pinterest has come out in the past year. Where do you see all this going? Do you think Twitter's, it's a fly by night? Do you think it's here to stay? Where do you see all this going?
I think it's here to stay, and it's evolving really all the time and changing. I mean, there's a lot of changes going on with Facebook, for example, and I think new platforms will emerge. I mean, like I said, Pinterest is a new one to explore. There's a difference really in terms of capturing insights for me, that exploring different platforms and what they offer in terms of real-time engagement, that you've got to be there to get a collective group of people together and talk at that specific moment in time, which some platforms don't lend themselves to, as well as other platforms. So I think, as times evolve and people start to use social media differently, then new platforms will emerge.
You talked a bit earlier about social proof, which I think is a really great concept, something really innovative. So do you want to explain perhaps a bit more about that?
Yeah, I think the idea really is that consumers are becoming very savvy about what they're buying, and social media provides a word of mouth recommendation on a very large scale. So by capturing content, example from video, and then get consumers to talk about that product is very, very compelling for all their friends and all the people that are involved in these events. So what we're doing is working towards social proof as a way of companies to support their marketing. So they've not only got the product and the marketing that traditionally goes along with that product, but they've also got conversations around that product that consumers have had. They've got video proof of how that product was played with in context and what the families think about it. And it's just to create a place where you know that you can go to for a backup and approval really from the people that use it rather than the companies that provide it.
Certainly from the statistics that I've seen, where statistics around people online engaged in social media have a greater propensity to buy online. I do think sort of social proof is going to become a far more influential part of the customer buying cycle. Is that something you'd agree with?
Yes, I would. I think, for example, social proof, things that we're looking at is the QR codes that provide a perfect opportunity there to link to content which demonstrates what people think about your product through word of mouth recommendation.
So do you think also perhaps some of the cross-channel marketing as well to promote the social proof is going to become far more important? So packaging, promotions, advertising, do you think it's...
Yeah, I think it comes into it to play everywhere, because with the emergence of these codes, you can not only have an advert on a poster, you can have a QR code with proof of what people think about it. Same with TV commercials, get them interacting with the content through social media. It's about getting buying and people talking about your brand, and also telling you and others what they think about your brand and your product. There's loads of opportunities. What advice have you got for a new business thinking about social media, or perhaps those companies thinking about, actually, we've piloted, we want to roll this out a bit bigger? What advice would you give to people? The biggest thing for success for me, and I think this would translate to other companies because it applies in the real world, and I would think it would apply in social media, it's worked brilliantly for us, is partnership working. And the concept here of working in partnership or joint ventures in the real world, you get to double your reach and halve the effort, basically. And it's that principle that if you work in partnership through social media, you're not only doubling the reach and halving the effort, but you're also reaching out to all the friends, followers, fans of the partners that are involved. And I found that to be tremendously successful to build awareness and draw new people in, and draw attention from elsewhere.
And I know one of the other risks that people talk about is sort of the reputational management. What happens if I get one of those dreadful tweets where somebody's dissatisfied with a product or service?
Yeah.
That's always a worry, I think, for a lot of people. How have you gone about managing that?
Yeah, this is interesting because I've had that experience actually within a playfest. Somebody came in and tried to be negative about it. And this is the beauty of listening to your community and building up a very strong community, is if somebody says something negative, then your community will stand up for you and they will fight your corner. The tweets are going off left, right and centre, not only back to the individual that had those views, but also out to all their friends about the positive. So for one negative, 50 positives came out of that. The other side of it is if it is something about your product specifically, perhaps something doesn't function quite so well, or something in the packaging, for example, then you can identify that, you can demonstrate that you're open, you understand your customer, you want to understand, and that you've listened, and you can address that at that point. It's much better than that happening anyway, behind closed doors, without you knowing about it.
Brilliant. Finally, so what next for IzziWizziKids? Where next? Where do you want to take it?
Well, we're working more with brands. We said about building the play community. We're working more with major toy brands and bringing in the branded playfest. So that's really a way that we're doing it to monetize it and to demonstrate value, because we create value for brands through their point of sale marketing and through the research and development, on top of all the social media benefits that they get on top of the interaction, and they get access to an engaged community. So what we're doing is looking at ways that we can generate the revenue from the brands and then put that back into the community, because this is a very strong community that have got big ideas about how they want to grow it. So putting that back into the community for the community to grow, basically.
So actually you're almost developing a completely new business model as well, where you're actually, you know, your community are driving out a lot of the sort of business
Absolutely,
ideas.
they come up with all the best ideas.
Brilliant. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Alison. Really enjoyed the interview. And thanks for tuning in online, and look forward to seeing you sometime soon on one of our next interviews. And thank you very much to the team at The Awakening for their time.